It's 4 o'clock. The top stories on 7 News. The woman mauled by a shark in Sydney Harbour thanks her doctors and some local heroes. Interest rate forecast, the new data out today. And Australian innovation hopes for a vaccine to fight brain cancer in children.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Good afternoon. The woman mauled by a shark in Sydney Harbour has given her first statement since the attack. She said her full recovery is a testament to the extraordinary skills of the specialist surgical teams at St Vincent's Hospital, also paying tribute to the local heroes who helped her.
She wishes to thank her heroic and very kind neighbours for the critical assistance they provided her.
The 29-year-old says she was taking a short dip close to the shore when the attack happened. Her focus is now on recovery after being released from the intensive care unit. We'll have more on this story coming up in the bulletin. The Reserve Bank is expected to leave interest rates on hold when it meets next week due to better than expected inflation figures for the December quarter. Isabel Mullen explains from Canberra.
Well, it's a good indication the Reserve Bank will keep rates on hold when the board meets next week. Quarterly inflation for December falling to 4.1%, down from 5.4% in the September quarter. It's an even better result than economists were expecting. They believe goods inflation will continue to fall, but they're still closely watching services inflation, that's things like hospitality and culture, before making a decision on interest rates.
Today's figures are better than the market expected. Inflation is now at its lowest level in 2 years. Monthly inflation has a 3 in front of it for the first time since December 2021.
It's a great figure for borrowers, both consumer and business borrowers. It's highly unlikely we'll see a further cash rate increase from here.
The Reserve Bank Board will gather next Tuesday for its first 2-day meeting. We should get a decision on the cash rate after. The majority of economists are predicting rate cuts later in the year.
US President Joe Biden says he's decided on how he'll respond to the drone attack in Jordan, which killed 3 American soldiers. US correspondent Tim Lester is in Washington.
President Biden's dilemma: how to rein in Iran but not stir a wider Middle East conflict. As the president left here today for some fundraising events in Florida, he gave some clues.
I don't think we need a wider war in the Middle East. That's not what I'm looking for.
The president says he's settled on a response to the deadly drone strike on a US military base in Jordan. 3 soldiers killed, the first Americans to die in more than 160 strikes by Iranian-backed militia since last October. Even some of Joe Biden's allies are suggesting it's time Iran itself paid a price.
But right now, they're getting all the benefit and no cost. They are attacking U.S. forces. They are, supporting Hezbollah, supporting Hamas with no cost. We have to get them to change that calculation.
The president is not saying what he and his team have planned, but does acknowledge Iran's role.
I do hold them responsible in the sense that they're supplying the weapons to the people who did it.
This as Israeli special forces show how far they'll go to hunt down an enemy. This security footage as a dozen soldiers dressed as medical staff and civilian women infiltrate a West Bank hospital and shoot dead 3 Palestinian fighters receiving treatment there. On Iran, President Biden's comments suggest he's not likely to order any direct strike within Iranian borders.
It remained a major bottleneck today, and Sydney's troubled Roselle interchange is expected to be even worse tomorrow when traffic fully returns to pre-holiday levels. One inner-city mayor says 10 lanes into 4 just doesn't compute, but he believes clearer signage could help. Evan Batten explains.
Good afternoon, Ann. Well, it's certainly going to be a very different story here at the Roselle interchange come tomorrow morning. The first real test to see if any of the improvements that have been made over the Christmas break have made any difference at all. Certainly the Inner West Mayor and the Transport Department have no real confidence that there will be any significant change for drivers, although the Premier, Chris Minns, today made clear he's expecting this multi-billion-dollar road interchange to be running much better than it was before.
I'm hopeful that the changes that were made just prior to Christmas, so the 2 entry points onto the Anzac Bridge, relieve some of the bottleneck, particularly for inner west communities.
And the inner west Mayor, Darcy Byrne, is calling for much clearer signage to encourage drivers to make use of the toll-free section, even going as far himself as to make up a version of the sign that he says will be much clearer for drivers.
I'm calling on the Transport Agency today to install common sense signage like this coming off of the Iron Cove Bridge.
Transport for New South Wales today refused to go on camera, but is on the record this week urging drivers to avoid using this section of road, either taking another bit of road or trying another mode of transport or at a different time of day altogether. And they will no doubt be watching very closely tomorrow morning to see if anybody at all has taken that advice.
In a major milestone for Western Sydney International Airport, the final layer of asphalt has been laid on the runway. Line markings and 3,000 lights will now be installed on the 50 tonnes of asphalt. Submissions from the community with regard to the draft flight paths close today. A group of volunteer lifesavers has rescued 4 swimmers from potentially drowning at Bondi Beach. As Bill Hogan reports, it happened just as the surf club had finished training.
Well, a routine training operation turned into a real-life rescue for surf lifesavers in Bondi Beach last night. 4 people caught in an infamous rip on the southern end around 7:45, forcing young volunteers into their very first major rescue. The lifesavers didn't hesitate though, pulling in 2 men from the water as they struggled to swim. 2 others were also brought to the shore. The 2 men were treated by paramedics who arrived a short time later. One was taken to St Vincent's Hospital, the other to Prince of Wales in a serious but stable condition. The beach was unpatrolled last night. If it weren't for volunteers undertaking lifeboat racing, it would have been a different story.
There would have been lives lost last night. We were very lucky that they had 20 lifesavers, volunteer lifesavers on duty, doing some rescue training.
Jade Melvey was among those thrown in the deep end last night. She comforted family as they watched on in distress.
It's just making sure that obviously the patients get the right care that they need, but also that their family and their friends who are with them aren't stressed themselves.
The group were from overseas. The message to international travellers and all other swimmers to not enter unpatrolled waters and to always swim between the flags.
Angie joins us now with the latest on Sydney's weather. Angie, there was a cooler breeze today.
That's right, Anne. A mild southerly change made its way up the coast today. Despite that, temperatures were still above average. We reached a top of 28 degrees in the CBD. Very high dew point and very high humidity again made conditions feel muggy and quite uncomfortable at times. There wasn't much rainfall about today and heatwave warnings have been lifted. So overall, a more settled day. The hottest place in the state was Burke at 39 degrees, the coolest Thredbo with 18. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of the weather at the moment is the lack of cooling overnight. This is how minimums should fall this evening, and it's looking a little bit better. 21 degrees on the way for Bondi, 19 at Penrith, 17 for Campbelltown, and this is set to be the coolest night of the week ahead. Come Sunday, we'll have extreme daytime temperatures to match. A hot air mass will filter all the way to the coast. Details on just how hot it'll be a little bit later in the bulletin, Anne.
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you, Angie. Still to come in Sydney's afternoon news on 7. Thousands taking up vaping every month. The shocking figures. A fire rips through an abandoned home. And later, a frozen biobank that could save Australian wildlife from extinction.
Tonight in 7 News, inflation plummets. Good news for mortgage holders. We hear from harbour shark attack survivor Lauren O'Neill. Sydney's Anzac Day rock concert slammed as disrespectful. Bondi swimmers saved as training turns into a real-life emergency. And a young girl frees the family pet from the jaws of a snake. 7 News at 6.
You're watching 7's 4 p.m. Sydney News, and this is a view from Campbelltown Civic Centre today, where right now it's 25 degrees. An abandoned house has been destroyed by a suspicious fire early this morning in Sydney's southwest. Emergency services were called to the property in Claymore just before 1 a.m. Smoke could be seen coming out of the roof as firefighters fought to control the blaze. No one was inside at the time. Out-of-pocket costs for common medical procedures under the private health system have jumped by 300% in 5 years. Heart angiograms are up from $50 to $200. Bladder inspections, which were fully covered, now cost $200. Health insurers are now calling for tougher laws to protect patients from unexpected health bills. New figures are revealing the shocking rise of vaping in Australia. Thousands of people are taking up the habit every month. As Chris Maher reports, the government is cracking down on the sale of e-cigarettes.
Well, there have been calls today for the federal government to take a different approach to vaping in the community, with new figures showing an alarming increase in the practice. Now, this week, a new campaign was launched highlighting the health dangers from vaping as government, state and federal grapple with its impact, particularly on young people.
And I'm coughing black stuff into a tissue.
You know, new figures demonstrate the size of the challenge. Polling requested by the Convenience Stores Association, it shows 90,000 Australians took up vaping in the last 3 months. More than 1.72 million people aged over 18 use e-cigarettes. That's up nearly a third in the last 12 months. It has convenience store operators calling for vaping to be regulated in the same way as tobacco, limiting the impact of the black market.
The only way that we can address this black market is to starve it of its demand. And the only way you can do that is to make these products regulated and available through licensed retailers.
But doctors say the vaping numbers are concerning and the only way to go is to limit their availability.
No amount of regulation stops that. It must be enforcement to actually ensure that these vapes, which are illegal as of January 1 for everyone, are actually taken off the streets and out of stockpiles.
In March, new federal government legislation takes effect, further limiting vaping, affecting their packaging and flavouring.
Frontline workers like police, nurses and teachers are the focus of a new campaign to help communities grow across regional New South Wales. As our state political reporter Taylor Aiken explains, the state government is also trying to lure workers from interstate.
Good afternoon. Well, they're the backbone of every regional town. Police officers, nurses and educators. And now there's a new push for more essential workers to consider a tree change. The state government today announcing the Make the Move campaign, targeting frontline workers, emergency responders and teachers currently living in Sydney to consider moving to the regions, using those who have already taken the leap to spruik the benefits of living regional.
I find having a work-life balance out here a lot easier. There's no long commute to work. I've really enjoyed working in a small town rather than in the city.
The campaign is also aimed at those essential workers who have been lured into state by better pay and conditions, starting with those living in Adelaide.
Other states have been poaching our best and brightest to work in their institutions. If there's good people that are considering relocating, coming and working in the New South Wales Public Service, we'd love to have them.
The campaign is set to be splashed across social media and in print and radio advertising over the coming months, with the government also providing a support program to help those in relocation.
Next in 7 News, we'll have sport with Matt Carmichael, including Steve Smith back in charge of the Australian cricket team and fighting for the future of one-dayers. Also, the four-way fight for positions after a total makeover of the Bulldogs. And later, private school protest. Parents rally outside campus gates.
On 7 News, getting children back to school and off their devices.
As a parent, we've all experienced that battleground.
How parents can break the holiday habits.
It can be difficult if we just say to them, that's finished now.
The new solutions helping families reduce screen time peacefully. On 7 News with Mark Ferguson at 6.
Let's go to sport now with Matt Carmichael, and Steve Smith is back as Australian captain.
He looked good today, Anne, but making clear it's just filling in, that's for sure. Good afternoon. Steve Smith agrees with Pat Cummins that the West Indies Test victory at the Gabba was great to watch, great for cricket, and he's right in the Shamar Joseph fan club.
I think we were 7 down just before lunch, and I overheard him speaking to Craig, and Craig asked how he's going. He's like, I'm bowling to the end, man.
Smith returns as captain in a cameo role for 3 one-dayers. There are so many new faces he can't even guess an 11 for Friday yet. He was asked if 50 over internationals will still exist in 15 years' time.
I've no idea. I certainly won't be. I think it is a format that I'd like to see continue. Yeah.
To critics of his move up the order in Test matches, Smith points out he now averages 60 as an opener. Reigning Belinda Clark medalist Beth Mooney led the Aussie women to a tense 5-wicket victory in last night's T20 decider against South Africa in Hobart. Set a target of 163, Mooney shrugged off a bout of food poisoning to anchor the chase with 82 from 55 balls. Ash Gardner saw the Aussies home with 4 balls to spare.
And there's the Ash Gardner that everyone's learnt to love and respect.
Australia leads the multi-format series 4 points to 2. The one-dayers begin in Adelaide on Saturday. New Bulldogs recruit Drew Hutchison wants to be a central figure in the new era at Belmore. Part of Cameron Ciraldo and Phil Gould's off-season recruiting spree, the former Rooster says he joined Canterbury to establish himself as a starting half. But there's plenty of competition with Toby Sexton, Blake Taff and Jamin Salmon among the other contenders to partner Matt Burton.
The spot's up for grabs 1 to 17. I mean, no one's really locked in, and the coaches have sort of been really honest about that. And I've always sort of considered myself in the halves, and whether that be 7, 6.
The Bulldogs haven't played finals in 7 years. The Socceroos will play South Korea for a spot in the Asian Cup semi-finals on Saturday morning. The Koreans were just seconds away from elimination against Saudi Arabia overnight, but scored in the 9th minute of stoppage time to draw level at 1-1. It came down to a penalty shootout and South Korea won it 4-2.
The Wolverhampton Wanderers striker with a chance to send Korea Republic through, and he hammers it into the top right corner.
Saturday's game will be a rematch of the 2015 final won by the Aussies here in Sydney. Backup Socceroos goalkeeper Joe Gauci is believed to be headed to Premier League side Aston Villa. Villa's 17-game unbeaten run at home was ended by Newcastle United this morning, the Magpies winning 3-1.
Jesus, embarrassing Matt Turner at his near post.
Ben White and Alexander Zinchenko nearly came to blows at full time. Gunners manager Mikel Arteta stepped in to calm the situation. Having refused to be COVID tested all tournament, Novak Djokovic has blamed a secret illness for his semi-final loss to eventual champion Jannik Sinner at the Australian Open. Italy's first Grand Slam winner returned home to a hero's welcome. 22-year-old Sinner relived some of the historic triumph with Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni.
Volevano far rivedere una cosa, perché a quel punto stavamo tutti così, così immobili.
Sinner remains number 4 in the world rankings. New Diamond star Sophie Dwyer brought the Nations Cup trophy home to her junior club at Eastwood Ride. Dwyer only found out she was playing hours before the final, then shot 22 out of 25 to help take down England.
The coaches had confidence in me to start that game, so I just had to have that in myself. I didn't find out until probably 2 hours before the game.
The 22-year-old will star for the Giants when Super Netball resumes in April. An extraordinary Australian Olympic gold medal streak looks good to continue this year. On the water off Adelaide this afternoon, only disaster would prevent Matt Wern sealing back-to-back ILCA 7 World Championships. 25 knot winds have tested them.
You just got to execute and you got to hike like hell, really. So, just sort of had to back that I was fast enough in this sort of stuff and that the fitness was there.
From Tom Slingsby at London 2012 to Tom Burton, Rio 2016 and Matt Wern in Tokyo, Australia have 3 straight laser golds. Wern gets to defend his at this year's Olympics off Marseille. And just mentioned this morning in the morning news, Matt Damon's horse Dale having his first race.
How'd he go?
Came second last.
Just his first race.
Yeah, he'll get there.
Give him another
Come on,
go.
Dale.
Thank you, Matt. This afternoon's top stories are next. More from the woman injured in a Sydney Harbour shark attack. Her lucky recovery. The Premier taking a stand against a rock concert planned in the CBD on Anzac Day. And we speak with the researchers behind a vaccine that could stave off brain cancer in children.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Welcome back. These are our top stories on 7. The Reserve Bank is expected to leave interest rates on hold next week after quarterly inflation for December fell to 4.1%. And US President Joe Biden says he's decided how to respond to the drone attack in Jordan which killed 3 American soldiers, although he hasn't given any specifics. The woman who was mauled by a shark in Sydney Harbour has given her first statement since the attack. Lauren O'Neill is expected to make a full recovery after a long, complicated surgery. Today, thanking those who worked so hard to save her life. Paul Caddick reports.
Good afternoon. It is good news from here at St Vincent's Hospital. 29-year-old Lauren O'Neill appears to be doing well after the Monday night shark attack and is on her way to a full recovery. After losing a lot of blood and needing a marathon surgery to save her leg, she's already been moved from intensive care to a regular ward to continue her recovery. Lauren and her family making a statement through a hospital spokesperson this afternoon.
She wishes to thank her heroic and very kind neighbours for the critical assistance they provided her. Lauren is also immensely grateful to the New South Wales ambulance paramedics and King's Cross Police for their swift and caring actions at the scene. She would also like to thank all the clinicians at St Vincent's Hospital, particularly the specialist surgical teams who worked through the night. Her likely full recovery is testament to their extraordinary skills.
Lauren O'Neill was taking a quick dip in the harbour near where she lived in Elizabeth Bay. It wasn't an area protected by a shark net. The Premier says there's not a plan to net the whole harbour.
We can't be in a situation, even on Sydney's big public city beaches, where we can provide 100% guarantee of having a swimming area that is devoid of ocean life.
Experts say this is the peak season for bull sharks in Sydney Harbour. They come down from tropical Queensland in summer, inhabiting waterways along the New South Wales coast. The warm water temperatures are perfect for them.
The bull sharks are here for the summer. They come down when the water's above about 21 degrees, and then when it gets colder they go back up north.
Experts urging people to swim in protected areas, to not swim at night or at dawn, at dusk, and also avoid swimming after heavy rain, which can concentrate the fish that the sharks are looking for.
The RSL has fired a broadside over plans to allow a rock concert in the Domain on Anzac Day. As Chris Reason reports, the Premier says the Pandemonium Rocks Festival will not go ahead in the city centre, although there's no word yet on a new venue.
Good afternoon. Well, the Pandemonium Rock Festival certainly living up to its name, causing exactly that with New South Wales veterans groups today. The touring rock show features some big international names like Bondi, Alice Cooper and Deep Purple, veteran rock acts, with promoters calling it Australia's hottest new rock festival.
Pandemonium 2024, Australia's hottest new rock festival is here.
But then the promo video mentions the date for Sydney's concert, April 25, Anzac Day. The location, the Domain, right in the heart of the city, and beginning at 12:30, just 30 minutes after the Anzac Day march ends. When the RSL stumbled upon the details, pandemonium erupted. They demanded it be scrapped. Anzac Day is a day to think of the sacrifices made by the approximately 120,000 people from New South Wales who served overseas during World War I, as well as all those who have served since. It's a day for respect and quiet contemplation, they said. The Premier says he was blindsided and earlier today made this vow.
A rock concert in the middle of the CBD on Anzac Day can't go ahead, and we won't allow it to go ahead. And the truth of the matter is that is completely inconsistent with the importance of Anzac Day, the importance of the community coming together.
It seems the Botanic Gardens Trust approved the concert. The Premier insists no one in the government signed off on it. The concert promoter says they'd been negotiating for 5 or 6 months with the Botanic Gardens and the contracts were issued just last week. However, they say they're happy to try and relocate the event.
It's not normally the done thing, but parents at a $40,000 a year private school staged an angry public protest at the front gates this morning. They're upset by plans for Newington College to go co-ed, breaking a tradition that's lasted 160 years. Andrew Denny has the details.
Well, it was a small but vocal group of protesters who descended on Newington College here this morning for the first day of the school year, calling on the administration to reverse the decision to make the college co-educational and start admitting girls within 2 years.
The process which led to this decision was a sham. People weren't properly consulted, opposing views weren't properly considered.
About 30 old boys and parents took part in the protest, rallying against the school council's decision to overhaul 160 years of tradition and transform the all-boys school to co-education, the first cohort of girls to begin in 2026 before the school becomes fully co-educational by 2033.
There's some serious concerns to this issue. Firstly, our sister schools, PLC, MLC, I feel like we're portraying them in this process.
Protesters claim they have many more supporters who are afraid of speaking out because they still have sons attending the school. An online petition calling for the decision to be overhauled has gathered almost 2,500 signatures.
I've spoken to lots of families and they've basically been sold a lie.
We're fighting a losing battle, I think. However, we're still fighting till the end.
Now, the school today says its focus was on welcoming students back and preparing for the future.
Frustrated victims of the major flooding north of Brisbane are now calling for an investigation into why so many people weren't given more warning. Some residents are beginning the massive clean-up that could take months. Garth Burley reports.
Good afternoon. Residents here in Bray Park are continuing that almighty clean-up days after severe storms smashed this region. People have been using brooms and gurneys to clear out the mud and are emptying their flooded homes. As of now, around 400 homes have been affected, a number that is expected to grow. The Prime Minister has also visited the area, meeting with SES volunteers. Disaster relief payments have also been opened up to people in this area who have never experienced a storm this severe.
It's terrible, but there's honestly nothing I can do about it. There's just one of those things that happen.
Why is there not an engineer or someone questioning? This is not just an act of God. This is not just a rain event.
There needs to be an inquiry or some sort into it to find out why, again, it's happened.
In positive news, the rain has eased up here, but some people are holding off on the clean-up to wait for insurance assessors. Dump trucks have just started arriving here on the scene in Bray Park to remove all the flood-ravaged items from the street, but for residents, the recovery is far from over.
Australian researchers are right now working on a world-first vaccine to fight against brain tumours in children. Experts from immunology and brain tumour biology have joined together for the project. Joining me now is Professor Brandon Wainwright from the Children's Brain Cancer Centre at the University of Queensland. Professor Wainwright, good afternoon. Tell us about the vaccine you're working on and how would it work?
So brain cancer kills more Australian children than any other disease. Since the current therapies, which involve surgery and chemotherapy and radiation, were developed around 30 years ago, we haven't managed to shift the dial. And so we've been planning for 2 years with the support of the Children's Hospital Foundation, now Robert Connor Dawes Foundation, to start a vaccine trial so that we can take the individual characteristics of every patient's tumour and synthesize a vaccine against it to hopefully treat that tumour based on the individual characteristics of each patient.
Well, we've been hearing a lot about immunology and cancer recently, but for so many children with brain cancer, there are few options. Could this be a game changer?
Well, we're hoping, of course, that by trying something risky and different, that we're going to make some great gains. These things will take time, but we're always hopeful that a new approach, as we've seen with COVID vaccines, can really revolutionise treatment.
Well, incredible to think the combination of a vaccine could cure some children. What's the project focusing on first? So
the project, we're starting with a cancer called ependymoma, which is a very common malignant brain tumour. And then we'll work our way through other paediatric brain tumours as we go. So the laboratory research will initially focus on ependymoma, and then the clinical research as we go forward will be all children who have a dismal prognosis from their brain tumour.
Well, this sort of technology has revolutionised treatment for other cancers. We've heard of it being used in adults. Do paediatrics pose a different challenge?
It does. The tumours are very quiet. They hide from the immune system very effectively. So we really have to think quite differently about them. And of course, our brain sits behind a barrier called the blood-brain barrier. And getting any cell or therapeutic from the blood, where we'll start with the vaccine, and into the brain is always a challenge. But we've got some good ideas and we're willing to give it a go.
Probably difficult to say, but when do you hope a vaccine could become available?
Well, we are planning to do both the laboratory research and the clinical trial planning at the same time, do them in parallel, not wait for one and then the other. We're hopeful to have the ethics for a safety trial approved by the end of this year, so that in our ideal world we'll be enrolling patients in 2025 for a safety trial where we'll get our first proof of principle of the vaccine.
Professor Brandon Wainwright, all the very best and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
We'll hear from ComSec for the latest on your money next. Then it sounds like a scene from Jurassic Park, the plan to save Australia's native animals. A rattling encounter with a snake hiding in the bushes. And it's 25 degrees in Blacktown. Angie will have our forecast soon.
A free skin check using just your phone. The simple health tool in the palm of your hand, and it could save your life. Plus, how this Aussie real estate agent lost 32 kilograms. The secret to her incredible transformation. Start with Sunrise, tomorrow morning on 7 and 7 Plus. On 7 News, getting children back to school and off their devices.
As a parent, we've all experienced that battleground.
How parents can break the holiday habits.
It can be difficult if we just say when that's finished now.
The new solutions helping families reduce screen time peacefully. On 7 News with Mark Ferguson at 6.
A 12-year-old girl on the Sunshine Coast has had a rattling encounter. A snake hiding in the bushes in her backyard is seen taking hold of the family guinea pig. But young Rosie Whiteman wasn't scared off by the slithery situation, grabbing hold of the snake and swinging it around. Rosie's heroic act saving the much-loved family pet. Sydney 6pm News is coming up with Mark Ferguson. Mark, what have you got on the program?
Yeah, good afternoon, Anne. Tonight, good news as the latest inflation figures provide real hope for mortgage holders. Just days out from the Reserve Bank's first big call of the year, what today's results have the experts predicting. Teenagers wiped out as a car mounts the footpath at 6, what caused the accident and why it could have been so much worse. Private health insurance not doing enough. Tonight, the new numbers showing how out-of-pocket costs have soared for Australians undergoing common procedures. A delicate rescue following a terrifying accident. A woman pulled from a garbage truck. It's believed she was tossed inside while taking out the rubbish. And how to break those holiday habits as children return to school. The advice for parents. New research, how to cut down on screen time without the tantrums. And always a challenge, those stories and much more tonight at 6.
We'll see you then, Fogo. Thank you. Groundbreaking research is underway in Melbourne to save Australian wildlife from extinction. Researchers planning to store cells of up to 100 species in the country's largest frozen biobank. Ainsley Kosh spoke with the lead researcher about the project, which is the first of its kind in Australia.
World-leading research is happening right here at Museum's Victoria Research Institute to help save Australian animals on the brink of extinction. I'm joined by Professor Andrew Pask from the University of Melbourne. Andrew, just tell us a bit about the work that's happening here.
So the idea of the biobank that we've set up here is that we can actually go out into the wild, we can collect samples from our most endangered animals, we can grow cells from those animals, and then we can freeze them down in the repository here. And once we freeze them down, we have a permanent record then of that species that will go on forever. So if we lose that species from bushfire or some adverse weather event, we're able to go back to this collection and actually recreate those animals and then put them back into the wild. We're working on a number of small marsupial species that are particularly vulnerable to things like like bushfires and floods. We're also working on some of the most endangered reptiles that we have here in Victoria. One of them is the Victorian earless dragon. So that was a species that we thought was extinct up until last year. And we found a very small population of those. And so we've now frozen their cells down. And we're also working on iconic Australian bird species like the brolga as well, for example.
And you've been doing a lot of work with the Tasmanian tiger as well. How does that research incorporate into what you're doing here?
So our work with the Tasmanian tiger involves us really figuring out how to take that cell and recreate a whole living animal from it. The beauty of the biobank here is that we'll actually have those cells frozen down. We won't have to re-engineer an animal that's gone extinct because we've got that living sample now actually frozen.
And so you're hoping to expand this research as well, possibly into other museums across the country?
That's correct. So at the moment we have funding to do 100 species within our collection here, but ultimately we would like to do this for every single Australian species and have a complete frozen repository of all of the biodiversity and the incredibly unique animals that we have here in Australia.
Let's get a check of your finance now, and it was a record-breaking day. Here's Laura Bezerati from ComSec.
Good afternoon. Today certainly was one for the record books. The Aussie market managed to break through its old record, hitting a fresh high today and ending up by 1.1% to have our best day in over a month in the process. The Aussie market has also been climbing for the past 8 sessions in a row, which is the longest winning streak since March last year. All of this comes on the heels of a softer than expected inflation report, showing that inflation is easing and more quickly than forecasted, which has investors hoping that the Reserve Bank could cut interest rates for the first time in August after what has been quite a long period of hiking. The RBA will actually be meeting next week, where they'll more than likely keep rates on hold, especially after today's inflation numbers and the big drop in consumer spending that we saw during December. And of course, all eyes will be on what they say about interest rate cuts, because as of right now, we haven't actually heard from the RBA talking about rate cuts just yet. In terms of sector performance today, we saw all of the 11 improving. The financial sector was a huge support, with all major banks pushing higher, while most of the other sectors rose in the order of between 1 and 2%. Finally, the Aussie dollar has firmed to buy 66.1 US cents. Have a lovely night.
Next in 7's afternoon news, Angie will be here with your latest weather forecast.
Good afternoon, Andrea Panomo here in the Allcastle Homes traffic chopper. Big delays through Liverpool for the Hume Highway southbound towards the M5. That's from an earlier multi-vehicle accident. It has the Hume Highway back into Warwick Farm. It's also back onto the Cumberland Highway travelling south with traffic into Cabramatta. Allcastle Homes Bannaby 38 with attached 3-bedroom granny. 8 bedrooms from $629,995 on your land. allcastlehomes.com.au.
Tonight in 7 News, inflation plummets. Good news for mortgage holders. We hear from harbour shark attack survivor Lauren O'Neill. Sydney's Anzac Day rock concert slammed as disrespectful. Bondi swimmers saved as training turns into a real-life emergency. And a young girl frees the family pet from the jaws of a snake. 7 News at 6.
Angie's here with our forecast. Angie, will we see a break in the clouds anytime soon?
Oh, not tomorrow, Anne. It's looking quite unlikely. The grey skies staying put with more showers ahead too before the week's out. There was a southerly breeze at times today with a top of 28 degrees in the CBD. Not overly hot, but it was very muggy with high dew point and high humidity. We have a trough extending into western New South Wales from the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily, while onshore winds over eastern parts of the state are pushing some showers onto the coast. Ahead, a cold front is going to brush the coast on Saturday, bringing a cooler change to the coast. That's ahead of a dramatic increase in temperature on Sunday. Around the capitals, Brisbane's looking fine and fairly warm, 31 degrees. Canberra heating up, a top of 32. Lovely one for Melbourne, partly cloudy, 25 degrees. Passing shower for Hobart, 23 forecast. Adelaide, nice and sunny, 28. The heat continues for Perth, 39 degrees expected. Darwin, a shower or two, and 32 degrees. Back in the CBD, slightly cooler night on the way, dipping to 20. Tomorrow's top is looking like 28. Again, those grey skies with the current southerlies tending northeasterly from late afternoon. Ahead, Friday brings a light shower or two. A cooler one for Saturday, cloudy, 27 degrees in the CBD, 29 in our west. But it's a weekend of extremes. Sunday, 32 in the city, 39 in our west, even warmer for Monday. So a hot couple of days just there, Anne.
All right, thank you, Angie. And that is Sydney's 4 p.m. news for this Wednesday. Mark Ferguson will bring you 7 News at 6. I'm Ann Sanders. Stay with 7 now for The Chase, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7 Plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.